Burfer. He's here to discuss and answer any questions about the juvenile justice system. That is his role currently. And then we have Captain Grant here to discuss current crime statistics in District 5. I wanted to thank Bishop Kilpatrick and Pastor Kilpatrick for letting us use your church. We really appreciate it. So I think I'll hand it over.
Okay, so Officer Caldwell said, my name is Gil Urfer. I'm the team captain for the delinquency unit in Milwaukee County DA's office, which means that I run the team that processes all juvenile offenses that come in from Milwaukee County. And actually, even because of a weird quirk in the law, even juvenile offenders who may be arrested in other counties but who reside in Milwaukee County, those cases can, under certain circumstances, also be transferred to us. So it's roughly about 1,000 cases or so a year in recent years. It was down as low as 600 or so cases a year back in 2019. 2020 was an outlier for a whole bunch of reasons, so those numbers I don't even look at because they're a mess. But it's been increasing. I'm happy to kind of give you an overview of how the juvenile justice system works if you want. If you guys have, I can certainly start off with that. Basically, yeah, sure. Basically, juvenile justice system works parallel to the regular adult criminal justice system, but with some very marked differences. First and foremost, the way the cases come into us, they first come through juvenile probation, which is in Milwaukee County is the Children, Youth, and Family Services Division of DHHS. So it comes to them first, and the juvenile probation agents essentially talk to the youth, talk to the family if they have time, depending on how the case comes in, and they do more of a holistic assessment of what's going on here, what is happening with this kid that brought him or her to us. And then at that point, the referral is sent on to us. That can take, if the juvenile's in custody, that happens same day, as best they can. If the juvenile is not in custody, or if it's sort of a summons or an order-in case, then they have up to 40 days, but they usually take about 20 or 30 days to meet with people, talk, figure it out. They generate a report, they send that on to us as well with a charging recommendation, like what do they think we should do with the youth. Then we review the police reports just like we would for an adult case. We make a determination. There's a lot of different things we can do. We can divert the case right then for a deferred prosecution agreement where no charges are filed. We do that in more minor cases. We can issue the petition, which is like a criminal complaint, and then that follows sort of more of a traditional path, like the adult court. And then obviously we can also just decline to charge entirely and say we don't think we can prove it, or we don't think we should try to prove it for whatever reason. I guess at that point, the biggest difference though, and the part that I actually really like about being a juvenile prosecutor, and I have been since 2017 or so, is just that there's, within the juvenile system, generally speaking, there's more of an effort and more of a focus on rehabilitation. And that makes sense on two levels. The juvenile justice system itself is set up with much more limited penalties than the adult system, based on the idea that kids are less culpable, less aware of what they're doing, the consequences of their actions, the overall bigger picture of life, than adults are. And there's a lot of newer psychological studies and brain scans that talk about why that is developmentally, but the truth is that we've had a juvenile justice code in one form or another on the books since 1901. We're one of the first, I think we're the second jurisdiction in the country to enact one, and it really is based kind of on the common sense of anyone who's spent any time with an adolescent. I can say that all of us during those stages and at that age were less than ideal, and we've all made mistakes, and we all suffered from the same kinds of loss of perspective that teenagers sometimes have. So that's one part of it, but the other part is the recognition that outcomes are much, much better if there is a sufficient intervention at that age, at 15 or 16, and you think about it, when I was down prosecuting adult cases, you'd get somebody in at 20 or 22 and you'd go, oh, they're so young, we have so much time, and we've got such a good shot at changing the trajectory of this person's life if we do it right. 20 or 22 is ancient in my world now. that's way beyond what I think about. I think about 12, 13, 14, 15, and what a better opportunity that is than 22 or 23 or any of those. So there is a lot of focus on that. There's also there's sort of three different sort of legs to the stool, so to speak, for juvenile law. You've got protection of the public, which of course is always present in any kind of system that tries to address criminal offenses. Accountability for the offender, and then rehabilitation for that offender. We lean heavily on the rehabilitation side a lot, but one of the things that I keep trying to impress upon our judges and juvenile probation agents is that that piece alone doesn't get the job done. Because if you're not protecting the public from juvenile offenders, you're not doing the basic job of a juvenile justice system, and if you're not providing real and significant accountability to these offenders, then they really don't have that much incentive to do the third one, which is to change that arc that their life is on. If there's no harm, no consequence to the action, just even from me, when I was 16, if you lectured me for an hour or two and sent me back on my way, I would have thought, well, got away with that one. And I do ask the judges, I say, well, how many times did some random authority figure give you a lecture that changed your entire life when you were 16? And so far, none of them have been able to tell me one. So it's just noting that there's, at some point, providing a consequence and a clear kind of rebuke has a purpose, and it's not punishment, it is accountability, and it's the thing that makes all of us change our minds and really look at what we're doing and make different decisions, and that's true of adults too. And so trying to provide that in a way that's not harmful, but does actually make that change happen is part of the fun algebra that I try and struggle with every day. So I can tell you that there are some real challenges in our justice system right now. We've got significant problems on a lot of different fronts. One issue is, and this is a little bit complicated and a little bit annoying, but this is a big deal. How many of you know that that the governor and the legislature back in 2017 voted to close Lincoln Hills and Copper Lake, the juvenile correction facilities out in the western part of the state? Okay, a lot of you. Is Lincoln Hills and Copper Lake, are they closed?
No.
I would have accepted either answer because they're both right. On paper, they are absolutely closed as of July 1st, 2020. What happened was the governor at the time and the legislature saw this big trouble brewing. There were some bad things happening out there, and they wanted it off their plates collectively. And so they said, we'll close it, we'll invent a new program, a new system where local counties have their own little secure little local detention facilities for people serving sentences, and we'll close these, and it'll be great. And they set a deadline, and immediately the county said, whoa, wait, there's not enough money to build our own little version of that. You didn't give us enough to, we don't have the funding to do that. And so that's where it stalled out. The state government saying go and do this, the county governments, Racine, Milwaukee, there were a couple of others that tried to go forward with the program. They all said there's not enough money to build a facility like the one you're talking about. And so that stalled out, and Governor Walker then pushed off the deadline to close Lincoln Hills twice, and then Governor Evers pushed it off once, and then it was set to expire. Lincoln Hills, Copper Lake were supposed to close July 1st of 2020. And Governor Evers did not extend the deadline. And so on paper, Lincoln Hills and Copper Lake ceased to exist on July 1st, 2020. Of course, not only did they still have kids in them, not only did they still have full staffs, not only were they operating under a consent decree from a federal lawsuit, and so they had to continue working, but also these secure residential care centers that all the counties were supposed to build, not one shovel had broken ground in the state on any of those. The Department of Corrections hadn't even put together licensing requirements for such a building or such a facility because they didn't need to yet, because there wasn't going to be one yet. So 60 days after Lincoln Hills quote unquote closed on July 1st, 2020, the rest of Act 185 came into being. And the law changed, and suddenly in my world, it was like everything was upside down, because what the law now says is for most kids, unless they fall under a very narrow set of serious juvenile offenses, for most kids, the only place, if you want to keep a kid in custody, you say they're too dangerous at this point to be released to the community, you want to keep them in custody, there's only one place that the law says you can put them: in a secure residential care center for children and youth. Anybody want to guess how many of those there are in the state today? Zero. Zero. Still zero. So the law literally on September 1st of 2020, the law that I deal with most often in trying to deal with more serious cases and more serious offenders, said the only place I can put them is a fictitious mythical place that does not exist. It might as well have said unicorn farm. And the one place I can't put them is the place that is actually still staffed and under a consent decree to provide appropriate care and has kids in it. I mean, yes, the look on your face says it perfectly, sir. It is absolutely crazy that this happened, but that's what happened. We worked through a lot of it. We figured legal workarounds for really difficult cases, and we started overusing what is called the Milwaukee County Accountability Program, which is MCAP, which is an in-house, in our detention facility situation where kids go for a maximum of 180 days in custody. They get treatment and programming in custody through Running Rebels, in dialectic behavioral therapy and other things like that. Then they have 6 months of it, sort of like extended supervision, so 6 months of monitoring in the community, and then that's their sort of 1-year sentence. The problem is that that was really meant to be like a last stop before Lincoln Hills or Copper Lake or something else, and so we started putting these kids who really needed to go to that next step into that last step. And they figured out some things pretty quickly. Number one, they figured out that 180 days as a maximum, well, they can do that standing on their head. So they started, at 170 days, they started telling people, well, I'm out of here in 10 days, so what are you going to do about it? Making it pretty difficult to get buy-in. Also what happened is it's a 24-bed program. It's maximum capped 24 beds, cannot be expanded by law. That's something that Act 185 prevented us from doing. Is they locked all those things in place because we're going to have this great new SR, secure residential care center thing. So it's 24 beds. Originally it was just for boys. We fought really hard to say that's unfair because we had a couple of girls that we didn't want to send to Copper Lake, but needed something, and we're not safe. They finally let girls into the program. Still 24 beds. The current waiting list, I think, is 22 who are sitting in custody waiting to get into the program. It's been as high as 24 or 25, And again, the program itself is a 6-month program in custody for 24 people. And there's that 180-day clock, which means you get sentenced to it, you're on the waiting list, your days start running, and then once you finally get into the program, you get about half of the required dosage of treatment, programming, etc., before you 180 out. And good luck. So that's kind of a disaster. Combine that, and I'm sorry to be so depressing, but I do go to work every day, and this is all I see. So come join me. So the other piece is that the county has now $28 million to spend on building out their secure residential care center for children and youth. The plan that they've put forward takes the MCAP facility, the 24-bed facility, guts it, replaces it with 32 beds, 4 for girls, 4 more for boys, so 28 for boys, 4 for girls, to the tune of $28 million. So we're gaining.
And that's for 32 kids over a period of a year?
That's for 32 kids. The SRC, the Secure Residential Care Centers aren't governed by that 180 days and all that. That's just the MCAP program, so it's a little more flexible in its timing. But really, that's not necessarily a good thing, because if they have a kid who needs to stay in for 300 days, well, that's one of those 32 spots for 300 days, right? And so the capacity issues are, I mean, it's going to be full on day one, and with a waiting list, and it's going to be a problem. And
A waiting list of how many?
it varies. I mean, it's been as low as 10 or 12. It's been as high as 25 or 26. But it's a train wreck. And I've said to juvenile probation, this is not going to meet our needs. You guys are already using the fact that MCAP has a waiting list as a reason to release kids who I think are dangerous because of, oh, it's overcrowded. And I'm like, well, yeah, but that doesn't justify putting the public at risk or putting this kid at risk, because a lot of times they get injured too in these processes. So it's a mess. And they acknowledge, juvenile probation CRFS will tell you, yeah, no, this is not gonna be adequate. But they won't do anything else, or at least they haven't told me about it. So that's that. So that's also fun. Yes, go ahead.
Who's funding this building that actually does not supposed to exist?
So this 28 million is the plan to actually have our secure residential care center come into existence. But it comes from a couple of different sources. I believe that there's some money that's tied to a pandemic, something or other. I really don't know, because it's a different agency's budgetary concerns, and so I should probably know more about it, but I honestly, I was excited that they had any money to do anything with it until I saw the plan, and then I was like, well, that's like that's 3 million, 4 million a bed. I feel like we could do better. But
Okay, not
yeah.
the 28 million that we're talking about.
Yeah.
The building that is not supposed to exist, but exists because we got folks
kids in there? Oh, Lincoln Hills.
Yes. Who's paying for them to be up there?
We are Milwaukee County.
Okay.
Yeah, we are
So
to an
paying for
outrageous
something that ain't
number.
supposed to be there.
Yeah. Go ahead.
When those kids mess up, with the time days get extended on you, you mentioned 180 days. Okay, the kids that's already incarcerated, when they mess up, do their time get extended?
So
Do the 180 days
the 100
represent all that they can do there? Or when they mess up, they start over? How do that work?
right. Depends on the level of mess up. I've had kids who started, stealing stuff and doing, they get into fights that beat somebody else up while they're in the MCAP program in custody. I have filed sanctions. I've also filed a change of placement to send them to Lincoln Hills, which I can do once they've already been sentenced once. So there are ways of dealing with that. If they reoffend, let's say they get released from their 180 and they reoffend, or they committed a chargeable offense while in custody, then all bets are off, because that's a whole new case.
What I was saying is, if they mess up within the system,
Right.
180 days, why can't they go to Lincoln Hill?
They can, and I have had to do that on occasion, or I've at least tried to do that on occasion when it was appropriate, but yeah. Yes, please.
I have a grandchild that was sent to Lincoln Hill. My only problem, I'm not saying that he was not guilty. I'm not saying that. But my problem is if the facility is closed. He got sent, say December, January. That's my right. If it's on record, it's closed. It doesn't exist on record. Would you, my 13-year-old grandchild got sick.
Yes.
So, my thing is, how do I know that he's safe? And he's being properly taken care of? Because the way I see it, and I'm just playing bad cop here. So the way I see it is, even though I'm a good cop, but the way I see it, if he disappears from a place that doesn't even exist, that is not even supposed to be open, and he just come up one day and nobody knows what happened to him, where is he at? Because see, this place is closed.
Right.
There are no visitations there. I can't,
So-
we can't go, his mom can't go.
So it is closed on paper in a very limited sense. In a very real sense, it is fully open, operational. It still has the consent decree, the ACLU monitor coming out and doing inspections, talking to the kids, making sure that they're moving toward better compliance with the concerns that they had at the front end. So it is very much a fully operational and running and functioning system, and it's actually providing better care and services than it was in 2017. It's just this sort of ridiculous fix that the politicians came up with to shut it down and build this other thing that makes it just really bizarre. In that it seemed like you can go and you can read Act 185 and it'll tell you that it closed, but it didn't. So your grandchild is in a facility that is licensed and working and staffed and monitored by the ACLU and all of those things. But it is a weird situation. We have an appeal going right now where a kid got sentenced on a serious juvenile offender sentence, which is a small number of statutes where they can still go directly to the Department of Corrections, to Lincoln Hills. He got sentenced, and the argument by the defense attorney is, well, that place doesn't exist. That place was closed 2 years ago. So we'll see what the Court of Appeals does with it, but this is the first test that we've seen in 2 years. It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I tell other lawyers about this, and they go, no, the law can't be that messed up. It really is. Yeah, I've never seen anything like it, and it hurts my brain to think about
So,
still.
I mean, it sounds like overall what you're saying is that the taxpayers in the city of Milwaukee are financing a dysfunctional juvenile correctional system.
Yes.
That's not exactly what I said, but that's not necessarily an incorrect conclusion. Yes.
At the tune of,
I just wanted to, that's not
no,
what
that's not what you
but-
said. In my own words.
Yes, I would not take issue with your assessment.
Right. At the tune of millions of dollars.
Yes, yes. This is where it's the prosecutor, not a politician, so I'm doing the best I can. But yeah, so that's, yeah, no, it's very challenging.
I mean, I thank you for being here because just that brief explanation helps us to understand why our community is in such a state of dysfunction and disarray. And a lot of times we're putting the pressure on households and families, but the system is failing in the households and the families because we're not processing or dealing with our children right when they are offenders, and then we're not connecting enough resources to them to help them not re-offend. And then it's all of this red tape and smoke and mirrors, so nobody really knows what's going on, and our children are being lost in the process.
I would say it's not quite as bleak as that, but it is
Well, if
really
you live
messed
around
up.
here, you
Yeah,
know
no. I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying that yeah, it's it's messed up. It is very, very messed up, and there's not a really easy solution. I've tried a lot of different ways to try and make things better, but I'm not a legislator. I can't change the law. I'm not a judge. I can't sentence kids the way I think they should be, regardless of what options you have left. And so I do what I can with my team to do what we think is right, but it is much harder than it was a few years ago. Yes?
As a community, as residents, what is our part in trying to correct this issue?
Thank you for asking that question, because in my little presentation and trying to put together notes, I got to that point and I was like, I'm gonna go and talk to these people, and they're gonna want me to tell them, presumably, hopefully they're gonna want to help. And if they do, what in the world am I gonna tell them?
Well, I mean, we want help with our babies.
Yeah, no, I mean, there is no.
I mean, the bottom line, these are our children, they're not your children.
No, they're not my children, they're your children. But the other bottom line is that nobody on my team wants to advocate for anybody to be in custody. I mean, I don't like seeing a single kid go into custody. I've got a team full of, I've got 2 former social workers, I've got, who are prosecutors now, I've got a school teacher who's a prosecutor now. There is no one on my team who enjoys or appreciates or thinks it's part of their job necessarily to advocate to locking a kid behind a door and not letting him out into the community. It's awful. It's also necessary for some of these kids because they are that dangerous. But believe me, if we could go and never have to do that again and just send them all to supervision in the community with running rebels, with credible messengers, West Care, I would be a happy guy.
Yeah, but that's not practical.
No, it's not. You're right. You're right, it's not. And so we try and deal the best we can with those situations.
And I understand what you're saying as far as the empathy and the sympathy and all of that, and nobody wants to, we know that we have one of the highest rates of black male incarceration and all of that, right here in this zip code. And we want to do what we can to be on the preventive side of things.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless of that, there has to be serious consequence behind certain things. There has to be, our standards have to be raised around what we accept and what we don't accept.
Absolutely.
So we want to do whatever we can to be preventive and prevent our young people from getting in trouble. But when you cross a certain line, then that line is crossed and there has to be a consequence because we have to maintain a standard in our community of what civility looks like. So,
Agreed.
like I said, I totally understand you wanting to be empathetic, and they're our children, but we do have to find the balance.
So to your original question, or to your question, I think actually, about what we can do to help. I think that the biggest thing is honestly to show up out there at juvenile court and make sure that the judges know that you know what's going on. It's difficult for the judges because they're under this pressure from juvenile probation who says, oh, our MCAP program is already full up and we've got a waiting list, and we've got so many kids in detention awaiting trial, and we have only half the number of juvenile probation agents that we should have, and we keep hiring more, but they keep leaving. They're under very real pressures. Administrators tell the judges, you know how much it costs to send a kid to Lincoln Hills? Do you know how much it costs the county every time you send a kid to Lincoln Hills? It's outrageous.
Isn't it over like $100,000?
Yeah, it's
Is
ridiculous.
it like
we can-
160,000?
$400,000.
Yeah, it's like $400,000 for a kid for a year.
$400,000
Yes.
for your baby for a year.
Right. Or the other option is one of those $4 million beds at secure detention. All of this money I don't understand.
Hold on.
Yeah.
I want to say it again. $400,000 for one of your black babies for 1 year.
I want to say it, but won't send them to college.
Right. Right. No, exactly. I mean, exactly right. Like, why would we could send them to any college in the nation for that? I mean, for 1 year of that. I mean, If one of my kids had $400,000 in a college account, I'd be pretty
Yeah, me too.
freaking happy, yeah. Pardon me, but yes,
My question is, the ones that are on the waiting list,
yes.
where are they at?
They're in secure detention, most of them. Some of them aren't. Some of them have been released and are going to be ordered to come back in. But they're sitting. That's part of the problem, is that they're ticking down that 180 days, even though they're not actually in the program. So then when they get into the program, they don't have the full 180 days of the program before they then get released. Yeah. So so there are a lot of cases out of children's court that are not as confidential as the courts treat them. Any kid who has been adjudicated of a prior offense and is currently charged with a felony, that case is just as public as anything that's downtown. Any kid who is over 14 and is charged with a serious juvenile offender offense, which I think I can actually run them down, probably not from memory, but maybe. There we go. So, serious juvenile offender offenses include felony murder, first-degree sexual assault, second-degree sexual assault of a child, repeated acts of sexual assault, kidnapping, arson of buildings, armed burglary, armed carjacking, armed robbery. So kind of the worst of the worst for the most part. There's some missing that I don't really understand, but a kid 14 or older who's charged with one of those offenses, that is also a public hearing. In the right cases, having more eyes on this process is always better. Regardless of your position, you can be completely opposed to whatever it is I think is the right thing to do. I'm still going to be really excited to have you there, because it's just a better form of justice. There's a reason why the courthouse downtown is open. There's a reason why juvenile court is closed for the most part, right? Because we don't want to expose these kids to scrutiny, and we want to keep their identities safe to an extent. But when you're talking about someone who is a prior offense and is charged with a felony, if it happened in this neighborhood and you found the behavior outrageous or upsetting, you have every right as much to be there in that courtroom as I do. And this is something that I talked to Brittany Kitchingway, our community prosecutor, about, and we're working on a way. I've also been working with some folks downtown in District 1 community prosecution to get more people out there, because I don't like media attention. Like, I don't like cameras in the courtrooms. I don't like that kind of stuff. It makes everything kind of artificial and weird. But people, real people in the courtroom, that makes it better. It just makes everything better. So, as I said, yeah, go ahead.
I came here in 1968 from Chicago. One of the reasons I came from Chicago is because I didn't like the way of living in Chicago. I've been here ever since 1968. I raised 6 kids in this city. The youngest one now is 42 years old. The reason I said that is because I watched Milwaukee change. When I came here, Milwaukee didn't have no gang-related problems. That's one of the reasons I wanted to get out of Chicago. There was no gang-related problem here in Milwaukee that I know of. There was some little kids running together and they had their little things together, but it was nothing like Chicago. But over the years, a lot of people moved from Chicago to Milwaukee and had developed a gang relation among our kids. And Milwaukee was changed. But I haven't seen too much done about the change that it made, because I believe that law enforcement know what brought the change. If we know as parents, and if we know as citizens of Milwaukee, we know that Milwaukee was one of the best cities to live in the 60s and 1968, and from there on, I hear kids talking about, well, when the lights came on, we knew to go home. Yeah, because the parents could enforce them to come. If the kids didn't show up when those lights was on, before those lights came on, they're gonna get a buck with us, no doubt about it. But it done changed. Everything have changed for the worse. Not for the best, for the worse. I don't care how many facilities you built, you can't build enough. because it starts in the home. That's where it starts. We need the homes, we need not only the home, we need government, we need police officers to help maintain. But the big responsibility lies on our shoulders. That's where it starts.
So are you saying it lies on the shoulders of the community? Is that what
No,
you're
I'm
saying?
talking about parents in general.
So let me just think back on what Bishop said. So when you take the black male father out of the household, then you destroy the whole family structure. So I would like to know, from your perspective as a white male DA, what do you think is at the root cause of this juvenile delinquency here in Milwaukee at the rate that we're seeing right now?
Okay, sure, I can do that in 5 minutes. Well, I mean, I think a major part of it, you hit on the head, is that if you don't have, and kind of bouncing off of your comments as well, which is that if you don't have strong parental figures, they don't have to be the actual parents, they can be a grandparent, they can be an uncle, they can be a close family friend even, but if you don't have those people, those role models in your life, and what you've got to replace with ain't so great, you're already on a difficult, challenging path, one that is going to take a lot out of you to get you over and through. So I mean, I think that's a huge piece of it. I think that another piece, what we're seeing right now, I mean, we have organized like adult gang activity in the city for certain. We also have juvenile gangs which are operating at a different level, meaning these are not for-profit enterprises. They are not dealing significant amounts of drugs. They are not selling these cars that they steal for more than 100 to 150 bucks each. They're not involved in protection or human trafficking or any of the other kinds of actual business ventures, illegal, but business ventures that gangs typically involve themselves in. They're not for-profit enterprises. They're for mayhem. They're for their own amusement, and a lot of them use the word entertainment in their names. They're for entertainment. They're for stealing cars, driving recklessly, posting it on social media for credit from their friends. And if they have to use a gun or rob somebody at gunpoint, or just pop the steering column with a screwdriver and grab a USB cord, however they do it, they do it. And it's very difficult because, I mean, you were asking kind of what the root cause is. That probably 4 years ago, I was sitting down with one of my lead prosecutors in the delinquency unit, and I was just talking to her one day, and I said, you know, I said, there's no real way to do this, like, legally. But I think if we could come up between the two of us, because we did all the sort of higher level chronic offender, you know, serious felon kind of charges, I said, I think if we could take these like 30 kids, 20, 30 kids out of the community for a year, maybe 2, all of this stuff would collapse in on itself because there wouldn't be somebody teaching the next person how to do. There wouldn't be somebody out there telling them, you can go and do all this stuff and the juvenile justice system isn't gonna do crap. There wouldn't be that example of, I can do whatever I want and look, I'm back out on Tuesday. Instead, there'd be, oh, what happened to him? Well, I don't know, he went away for a while. And I think that a lot of it would have dried up. I talked to her recently. That number of kids now, probably closer to 150 kids, 200 kids, if you're talking about drying it up that way. That's not something we have the capacity or the will to do. And so part of the problem is not enough responsible role model, and what it was replaced with was not so great. The other part of it is no response of significant accountability from the justice system, not the police, not my unit. I'll step aside and let's take a look at the judges and juvenile probation for that. But really and truly, you know, when you have kids on YouTube or on social media going, yeah, if I get caught in a high speed with the police, I'll be back out on Tuesday.
Exactly.
And it happens. And then you put yourself, think back to when you were 16 years old. We've seen a lot of kids actually recently from families that are intact. This is the part that really bothers me now. I see families, parents, employed, hardworking, churchgoing, showing up for their kids in court, distraught and upset. Not at me, at them, at the kids, for doing what they're doing. But we're seeing these kids, and it hurt it was difficult for me to comprehend. Because we all have that narrative in our heads, like, well, the kid had a rough life, he didn't have a good role model, and so he went astray, right? I mean, that's the story we see and we know, and it makes some sense to us. It's not good, but it makes some sense, right? When I started seeing these kids with all those things showing up in my courts with serious charges, it bothered me, and I couldn't figure it out, except that then I started to think about myself when I was 15 or 16 years old. And if I saw the kid getting away with it, having a great time, tearing up and down the street in a new car every other day, how long does it take before you start going, well, doesn't seem like there's much of a consequence to this behavior. It does look like fun. I mean, again, adolescent brains. Now I know better.
Well,
16, I'd be there.
Well, one of the things is, it's like, it's frustrating sitting here where I appreciate you being able to come down as a DA who shoulders the responsibility of the burdens of our youth every day. But to have a white man come down here in our community to tell us what's wrong with our children, for me as a black man, it makes me feel like trash, right? And for us to sit here and have to ask you, what do we need to do to save our children? Again, it's not, to me, it just puts me in a frustrated mindset, right? And to this brother's point, we know that the destabilizing of our community came from the dismantling of the family.
Exactly.
And we know that the first community is the family. And if you don't restore the family, if we're not talking about the restoration of what family looks like today, then we're not being honest about what it's going to take to save our children or repair our children. Now, there is a level of organizing and being engaged that we have to do around being politically engaged around legislation and policy things that are happening, which I think he provides that understanding for us, being present, because we have lawmakers who are not doing the right thing. But when you have a community that's absent of men being present, and we've come to the point where we're afraid of our 13, 14, and 15-year-olds as grown men, you don't see no community nowhere in the United States where the men are not present, in that community. You go to that Jewish community on 51st, you don't see their children behaving like that, but you see their men present. You look at these Arabs, you look at these Hispanics, you look at everybody, their men are present. But when you come through our community, we sitting on the sideline, and as men, we are not present the way that we should be. And a man is the first line of defense for any community, right? So we have to take some accountability. We have to be aware, raise the awareness, and have these type of conversations about what's going on. But as somebody said, it's our responsibility. And I think as men, we have to come together around here first and say, let's have a real conversation.
Yeah.
As men. And then and set a tone for what we want to see, because the standards are so low and there's no respect for us as men. So our children don't fear us. They come past us and they'll run us over in the street.
Yeah, so we got to look at, so I totally 100% agree with you. So we got to go all the way back into the 60s, man. And so we're back in the 60s, the black family structure was over 50, the marriage of a black man and woman was over 50, 60%. Yeah. But then we all know how the government kind of came in and destabilized and took the black man out of the home. And so told the woman, well, hey, you can't have a man at home if you want these subsidies. Right. And so that began the whole destruction of the black family.
And we know that now.
Right.
Like the damage is done.
Right. So
now that we know it, we can't keep using it as an excuse now.
Not even an excuse. But
yeah.
like
I'm not saying that you make that excuse.
Yeah.
I'm saying like now we're aware of what the damage was, so now we gotta address it. How do we solve it? And I don't even think I know that the solutions come from us. There's no way you can tell me that we as a community and as people don't have the intelligence to figure out how to save ourselves. But we just have to come together and figure out what that looks like.
Right. I think that we become so divided. I'm sorry. I think we become so divided. Well, not only between ourselves as men, but also with our women.
Yeah.
We become so divided. So in the 80s and in the early 90s, black men shrunk. Black men shrunk and said, hey, you know, and let the women kind of step up and became the providers and became the men of the so-called men of the leaders of the family. And as we know, in any kind of situation, as a young male, you know, when you began to understand that you're a male, you become dominant. And when we shrunk as men and let women become the leader of the family, the young males became more dominant over the mothers. And so we see what we got right now. I had a great teacher, professor named Taki Watan, God rest his soul, but he really talked about this in depth. But I know, I'm sorry, man.
No, I know that there's other stuff that needs to be done. I ran way over time. I just wanted to say to your point, I did not intentionally offer my critique of what was going on until I was asked. I want to point that out, number one, because I know better. And number two, you guys know the answer to that question better than I do. And I would never presume to be trying to tell you about that because I don't know like you do. So please keep that in mind, and I'm painfully aware of that, and I try and keep that in mind when I'm doing what I'm doing. I just wanted to say that.
No.
I don't want you to be frustrated by me.
No, I'm not. No, it's not. It's not you. It's not you. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. I mean, but just being honest. Like we don't have to pity pat around our issues right now. You know what I'm saying? Like we understand where we're at right now. We gotta call a spade a spade. You know, it's time to quit playing around with acting like we don't know what needs to be done. You know, and again, when I didn't mean to just identify you as race as a white man or anything like that. But I'm saying that, you know, again, I appreciate you being here because we need to have a relationship with you. You are incarcerating our children. You know what I'm saying? Not you. No, you know what I'm saying? But you're trying to you're pleading to us on what we need to do to prevent you from doing that. So we thank you for being here. But we got to take accountability and responsibility for ourselves. You know, and that's all I'm saying. But I'm sorry, my brother. I see you. I don't want to.
I will stick around afterwards if you guys want more questions. I'm happy to talk.
Yeah, we were having some great conversations that can go for a while, and we have a time limit, unfortunately. So maybe afterwards we can try to wrap some of those up. So I want to say thank you, ADA Ripper, so give him a round of applause. And we'll have Captain Grant.
Bishop, did you want to say something?
Yes, I do.
This is your house. I want
If you don't mind,
Yes,
I'll
sir.
keep it real short. About 25 years ago, my son got into some trouble. And I've been ministering for about 45 years. My dad was a minister also. And I had to go to court with them. And when I got there, the DA that was prosecuting the trial said that my son came from a dysfunctional family. And he was a drug dealer, and that he also had gotten into trouble before. My son had never been in any trouble. My dad had 17 kids. I'm the 8th of 17. I've never been in any trouble. My family, he said, they stated that my family was a dysfunctional family. None of my kids never been to jail. We've never known to be troublemakers in no community. But my family was a dysfunctional family. And it was posed by the DA office. And so the lawyer there, I spoke to him. I said, whose family is he talking about? He most definitely is not talking about my family. And so the DA got the judge's attention. And when I did speak, I said, my daddy raised 17 kids. None of us never got in trouble. My son, he got in trouble, which is 1 out of 6. I told the DA, and I told the judge, I said, I'm not here to save my son. I hope you do give him some time. I said, please don't let him go out of this court without giving him some time. for what he did. For what he did, he's guilty. He needs to go to jail. So the reason I'm saying is, we got to be earnest with ourselves and not try to protect our children when we know that they're in the wrong.
Yeah.
My son told me, I wish you had never showed up. I said, if I hadn't showed up, you would have probably been further than jail. You probably would have been dead today. When he got out of jail, he did only 9 years. He was facing 46 years. He only did 9. He got out. He graduated from college, got a business degree, and he was doing well. He got shot 9 times by a girlfriend. But I'm saying that parenting is a great deal for children. Not only my kids, I have a lot of kids call me daddy. I'm daddy to a whole lot of folks because they call me daddy. They say, you're the type of daddy that we want to know. But what they're saying is, we're looking for examples among black men. That's what they're saying in reality. That's all I had to say.
No, thank you very much. And I appreciate the conversation that we all have had. I'm listening, and of course, I'm taking notes and you know, hoping that maybe we can have another conversation like this in the future as well. So thank you again, DA. I appreciate you coming out. And thank you, Bishop and Pastor Kilpatrick, for allowing us to be in your homes today. So we really appreciate it. And thank you all for being here tonight. So I don't think I need a microphone. Do I? Okay, thank you. All right, so I want to talk about our data for District 5, our District 5 boundaries. Okay, we know that District 5 goes all the way from Garden Homes all the way down to Hillside and east and west, from Imani all the way to River West. So we have a large boundary of residents that we get to serve, which I'm very grateful for. About 66,000 people that live in District 5 alone, okay? So let's talk about some situations that occur in our district. Our homicides. Now, as it relates to homicides from compared to 2022 to 2023, we're at about 19%. But keep in mind, this is June stat. This is up to June 30th, or actually up to July 1st. I would be remiss if I did not tell you that that number has gone up. Today's July 5th, okay? We're at 19 homicides compared to July 1st. So that is significant. Unfortunately, and I'm glad that you talked about, that you came up to speak, because our goal is to catch our children before they go down that path of killing someone. But unfortunately, we have some incidents where we have some juveniles that have killed people in our district. For the most part, and I know that you were talking about the gangs as well, gangs have changed. Remember, Gangster Disciples, Vice Lords, was the P-Stones, and whatever other gang that you can think of, they, for the most part, they were in their gangs, they had their turf, they were trying to make money selling crack, selling whatever it was, the reason was for money. The gangs that we have now, it's about social media. How many likes can I get if I do some stupid stuff on social media? I mean, post this. And I appreciate it when they post it because it helps us. Right? I really appreciate it. But so it's totally different. How many views can we get? Can I get famous off of doing this? Unfortunately, that's the time that we're living in. And I know that we talked about the 60s and the 70s. I'm an 80s baby, 80s, 90s baby. My mama would whoop my butt if I did not get in the house before those lights came on. I didn't play around. Okay, but we live in a different time, and unfortunately, parenting is a lot more difficult because they're not just going on what's on TV. They have Facebook, they got all of this other stuff, that TikTok, all of these different things that parents are up against. So whatever we can do at District 5 to assist in making your parenting, or assist you as parents, maybe if you want us to talk to your children, and we're not going to do that Scared Straight program because we don't want kids to be scared of us. We want kids to come to us and say, okay, hey, police officer, this is what's going on, instead of being afraid. So if there's something that we can do, please let us know so that we can do our part. But just going back to our crime statistics. So our homicides, so right now we had 19 homicides compared to 21 as of last year. So that, instead of it being at 19%, it's more like 10%. So we're 10% We're doing better than what we were last year this time around, but still, that's 19 people who's lost their lives.
19 opposed to 21.
Yes, compared to last year, yes.
But that's only in District 5?
This is only District 5. Yes. Our rates, we are 0% increase compared to last year. 46 occurred last year, July 1st, and 46 occurred this year at that same time. So what I found is that, well, regardless, it's just, it's sad anyway. However, most of the rapes that we've had in our district occur from known parties. So the person knows the person that they are offending, whether it is a date that goes too far, whether it is a family member or a friend, a boyfriend, a girlfriend of the parent who is inappropriately doing something to the child. Unfortunately, most of the rapes that we have occur with people who know one another. Robberies, so our robberies, we are up 8% compared to last year. So last year, July 1st, we had 151. This year, we are at, we're down. We're down 8%. We are at 139, we are at 139. So that is good. One thing that I always say is that I appreciate when you guys call us and let us know that there is suspicious activity occurring on your blocks. We do get there as soon as we can, although it may not seem like it in some regards, but we do. It's just a matter of us going from one call to the next. So please keep giving us those calls. If you see something that doesn't look right, let us know. We'll make the determination on whether we need to be out there or not. Our aggravated assaults, we are.
I apologize, that should be 739 underneath it as well, I believe.
7.
So
Okay.
the percentage is correct, but I forgot to
Gotcha.
give the new value. So the percentage decrease is correct.
Okay,
For aggravated assault.
so, right here. Aggravated assaults.
That number you're pointing at is incorrect, but the percentage to the right is. So
Okay.
it's not-
So it's 739.
7, okay, I was going to, I'm really good at that. So we are just not going to fight. Okay, so aggravated assaults, what are those? Because I go over that, and we talk about this every month. I know you don't. Okay, our aggravated assaults, those are the incidents where the fights take place, right? And I will tell you, I would rather have a fight versus going to a shooting. So the fights and the aggravated assault, that's generally where someone is assaulted where stitches are required, a bone is broken or something like that. And I would rather have that incident take place versus someone being shot, because we know bullets travel and they can mess up all types of internal organs. Human trafficking, so we have a 33% increase. So last year, this time around, we had 3. Right now, we're at 4. So we had 1 additional call. But when people call, I'm happy when they call, because we need to get people who are trafficking girls, boys off of the street. Burglaries. So our burglaries, this is significant. Last year we had 142. This year to date, we've had 192. So 50 more burglaries compared to last year. So what I will say is we are making the arrest of people. I can tell you that there have been 2 incidents. One, I will say his name because he's been criminally charged. I know his last name is Mr. Mays, is what I call him. That's his last name. We made an arrest of Mr. Mays, and I'm just going to just put a date out there. I'll say April 26th. We made the arrest of Mr. Mays. He was released on a signature bond. And he was arrested for burglary. Mr. Mays was arrested again in District 5 on April 28th. So 3 days later, okay? So we are making the arrest. It's just a matter of the judges, their decisions on if they want to keep those individuals in or not. And the argument can be because it's not a violent offense, that's why this person can be released. We all know that at any given time, a burglary can become a violent offense, especially if someone is inside the house or, so things can take a turn for the worse at any given moment. But that allowed this person to come back out into our community, District 5, to reoffend and victimize somebody differently. Yes, ma'am.
So, first of all, I appreciate you all being here, thank you for all the information. I do have some concerns. I live in the 4,000 block of 17th Street, Lucas King Heights area. In the last 2 weeks, there have been a great increase of burglaries into the garage. This gentleman has been identified on Ring cameras. He has been confronted by a neighbor and begged for the man not to shoot him. He has continued to reoffend. So in the last 2 weeks, in my neighborhood alone, maybe in my own block, my garage was broken into. I have 2 dogs, and my neighbor, he has dogs and a camera, and the police were called. Here's what my concern is. There's photos of this guy. He sleeps on the vacant house on the corner of 17th and Capitol. The police indicated that they were well aware of what was going on, but all they can do is take a report. So here is my question and build a file. Now, I saw this gentleman as I was on my way to this meeting, and I went back to secure, because here's my concern. You're kicking in all these garage doors now and climbing over fences. What happens next? You're gonna be going into people's houses. So when I contacted the police and went out, and I had an incident happen last night to where I heard the noise, went out with my dogs, and they were had broken into my neighbor's car, the garage. I called the police and I'm put on hold. I take a walk out there with my dogs and see a young man and say, hey, did you see anything? Well, 3 minutes later, as I go back into the house, there's multiple gunshots behind my house in the alley. The police did respond to the shot spotters, but I thought, well, they didn't pick up any of the bullet casings out here. And, you know, taking a report, and here's my question. This guy is very bold. Well, what do we do? I don't know, I pray on him, because I'm gonna be honest with you. A person that has no regard for their own life, and they are on drugs, and I know he has to have buyers, because you don't take snowblowers, lawnmowers, air compressors, this hour, and then you back 12 hours later with the same thing, without a buyer. So, I feel like this gentleman is criminal. He's not a gentleman, he's a criminal.
Right.
He is a greater threat to the community other than his burglary, because that doesn't matter to him. So if I was to catch this man, what do? Hold him until the police get there? Because I do be put on hold when you call. And I understand the city is busy, and I respect what you guys do. So my question is this. I own my home in that area and attempted to buy the other homes in the area to kind of have some control. We actually have an active, visible, suspicious activity going on. The police are aware of it. I'm not moving. So I'm trying to understand, is there some community for police? Back in, once upon a time, there used to be folks in the community get together, go out and just kind of walk around, make a presence and be known. I honestly think that as a community, we have to be proactive too, because by the time the police show up, it's over. But we need to know what to do. What can we do to deter some of this? Now, I have dogs. I have security cameras. I have 2 dogs. My yard is fenced in. But that's all deterrent. When somebody's determined, they become dangerous. My concern is that his picture is out there in the next door neighborhood block. And people know who he is. He's walking down the street with people's stuff. And the officer who responded to my property, and we had probably a $6,000 loss of tools out of the garage, says to me, well, ma'am, we know, but all we can do is take a report. They just created a file. A week before that, we observed this same man walking up Capitol Drive, carrying a large flat screen television set. The police was called and nobody responded. So I'm just trying to say, what do we do? Because I am at a place that I'm going to protect myself by all means necessary.
Exactly.
Me and my family, okay? And I'm praying for him because I don't want another statistic.
Well, I think you said it just right. You're gonna protect your family by any means necessary. And every last one of us need to be prepared to protect ourselves by any means necessary. And this man needs to be identified as an enemy of the community.
Well, I have alerted everybody
Yeah, and I'm
on my
just saying-
block that drive through the area.
Yeah.
I said, stop them as they come through the
Yeah.
alley. And I says, looky here, you see this guy down here sleeping on this house right here? He's hitting all of these garages and stuff. Be aware, because he's gonna get the cars next. They broke into my neighbor's car. The next he's gonna be coming into your house.
Right.
And I'm gonna just be honest with you. I didn't sleep last night, and I set up in my yard because I am not gonna be run over.
Right, right.
I'd like to know what can we do to be proactive. I'm willing to do whatever I have to do as being a part of the community because I know it takes all of us.
Yeah.
So one thing I wanna know for sure when we are done with this meeting is who that officer is, because I'm sure he or she gave you a contact card or some type of document with their information.
Okay.
Okay,
I don't
so-
wanna get them in any trouble.
Well,
They're some
no,
nice guys,
I'll
so
take
I'm
care
not
of
gonna
that
do
part.
that. You know,
But-
they're some nice
but-
guys, but I appreciate their honesty.
Right, now, what I can say is, thank you. What I can say is, yes, it is a report until we can catch him or her, okay? And when we catch him or her, which we do, it's a case file against that person. So this person broke into this garage, that house, this location,
There's
all
no
these
active
different
looking
things.
for this guy. They're not actively looking for him.
We don't, and I'll be honest with you, we do have officers who do actively look for for some of our suspects. But it depends on if they're pulled from one call to another. So I can't say that I have one or two officers that are going to go actively look for this burglary suspect. I can't tell you that.
Well, they don't have to look far.
But,
He sleeps on the porch of 17th and
right, but what I can tell you is that I will have them check for this person when they're going from call to call. As relates to your house, you have the right, it's called the castle doctrine. So if someone breaks into your house,
And what if they break into my garage? What if they climb
Now-
over my fence and come into my fenced-in yard and enter into my garage?
don't shoot them.
Okay.
But if they break into your house, and you believe that they're gonna do something to you or to one of your family members, then you have to do what you have to do to protect your life. Okay, so you always have to think about life. Property,
So see, here's my thought, and I'm not gonna take up no more time. I think that if somebody was that bold and they come over fences and you got security doors and all of that, that you just step away from my house. My yard is a part of my home. You know, that's what I'm thinking, because now you are too close to my door, and we got drug addicts, don't care about nothing but that next high, and they're not in a right state of mind, so then they're not responsible, and I don't wanna take the gamut of, you know, now we have to get up, my granddaughter, my family lives across, I have houses around. So it's like, I'm out there telling my family, go over there and cut them trees down and cut those bushes, we don't need blind spots. And we're gonna patrol ourselves, just to protect ourselves.
Yeah, yeah. And that's what it's gonna take. Cause I'm gonna tell you straight up, he need his head split.
Well, I asked my son
He need his head
to do
split.
that
And
to
he
him when
need to
they saw him.
he need to be removed at all costs. Because what you're saying, and there has to be a sense of urgency, because like you said, it's one thing that he in your yard. But what if you come out there? Is he gonna attack you? Is he gonna jump you? Is he gonna try to hurt you or harm you while he trying to steal your lawnmower?
I have two
Now, don't get me
dogs.
wrong.
Big
I understand
dogs.
you have to speak in a certain context of politically correct, right? We hear everybody have to be politically correct, but he need his head split. He need to be removed by any means necessary, right? And this is why I say that there has to be men in our community that are organized and mobilized, and we do have to police
But I
ourselves.
think that it takes a whole community.
No, it does. But again, as a woman, we have women that are vulnerable in our communities, right? And I'm just saying that there has to be more balance.
But
Now, what
that's-
that looks like, we have to decide. But but we cannot continue to just allow that to be the acceptable thing. He victimizing and burglarizing everybody, and everybody just sit back and wait to be the next victim until somebody get killed, somebody get hurt, or somebody become one of them statistics out there, or hurt him, or somebody hurts him. So your plea for help is, I think everybody's going through that, but there does have to be a conversation that we have to say, how do we become more urgent in these situations?
And then here's another thing, guys.
But he needs his head split.
About community.
I'm gonna
And
tell you
about
straight up.
parenting, you know, it takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah.
Because that kid may not listen to his mom, but he may listen to that neighbor over there.
Right.
So if I see something out there, I talk to every kid that goes past my house going to Rufus King, good morning.
Yeah.
How was your day? You're not in school today, what you doing out here? It's not what you say, it's how you say it, okay? And you engage them, and I think that's important. I think us as adults, we should not be afraid to communicate with the younger generation. I'm not saying go and attack them, you have to know when and how to
Engage.
talk to, engage them. And you can turn somebody's mind around. I mean,
Yeah.
I've had people come back to me and say, you know, thank you, ma'am, thank you, because you saved my life, But I think it's important for us as a community, like when you're in a store and you see moms cussing their little kids out and things like that, that's where it starts. It's nothing more to walk up and say, oh, hey, honey, how about this? Or another way. So we have to get away from being afraid to be a community, to know that it takes a whole community to raise these kids, because they might not have the mom in the home. Mama might be a teen mom who have teens and they're out there with their kids. We see a lot of that, but we as a community, we have to be a part. I'm willing to do my part. I speak to them, I talk to them, because you don't know what's on a person's mind. So I believe that if you let them know, like my neighbor, I told him, I know I'm watching you watch me, okay? So, you just have to let them know people, but I'm all in for whatever we have to do. That's why I'm at this meeting. Here's another thing is that I almost didn't even know about this meeting because it wasn't advertised. Didn't get no flyers on my door or anything to know about it. My daughter happened to see it posted somewhere about
Social media.
And I don't do social media. Everybody don't do social media.
We'll make sure that you sign up our email. Email? Okay, make sure you sign up for our email list and make sure that you get the next notice.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, but I do want to touch bases with you afterward.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry.
No problem. Okay, so thefts. So we're doing much better compared to last year. So last year, this time around, we had 588 thefts. This year, we've had 534. So that number is down about 9%. And a theft, the way that we categorize that could be someone who is in your house, and generally it is people that we know. Could be a cousin, a friend, whoever. You let somebody into your house, the next thing you know, your credit cards are stolen or something from your home is stolen. So generally when it comes to thefts, generally it's people that the victim knows. Motor vehicle thefts, I'm very happy to report that we are down 43% compared to last year. Those Kias and those Hyundais, they're almost, I'm gonna leave it in the Lord's hands since we in church. So things clearly are doing good. People are clearly using those clubs and those the clubs and the locks that we had at the district. We don't have any. We haven't had any in months. But I know that people have made personal purchases of those as well. So that's a blessing because that number is down significantly. Our arsons were down 16%. So last year we had 31, and this year so far we've had 26. A lot of times with the arson, sometimes it's people who own properties who want to get rid of it or who want to get that insurance claim. Sometimes there are individuals who do set other people's property on fire. Okay, so there's a variety of instances. Fatal crashes. Last year we had 2. This year or this time around, this year we've had 4 this time around. So we're at 100% there because it's double the increase. So I want to touch bases about this fatal crash. I know that recently, and I believe it was yesterday, a 21-year-old was criminally charged with the death of 2 women. There was a crash that took place at 5th and Keith. Okay, so in that regard, that individual was held accountable. So I am very thankful for that because I believe the women were 18 and 15 who lost their lives in that crash. Our non-fatal shootings, we are at 87 compared to 97 last year, so we're about a 10% decrease. And then our carjackings, we're even. So real quick about non-fatal shootings, and this also goes with our homicides as well. Most of these incidents take place with people who know one another. People who have ongoing feuds or beefs, and a lot of it with these non-fatal shootings, a lot of it stems from a lot of younger folks. So I just wanted to go touch bases on that. Here we go. All right, so aggravated assaults, this is what I talked about earlier. Incidents, 77, this is for the entire month of June. So from June 1st to June 30th, there were 77 incidents. That's where those fights take place, where somebody got stitches or whatever the case was, some type of physical assault between individuals. Shots fired calls. So for the total shots fired calls in District 5, we had 138 incidents where people called police and said that somebody's outside shooting or I heard shots. So the biggest area that we have is Harambe. Now, and I'm very thankful that people are calling police because we don't have, so shots fired ends at 8th Street at the freeway. So we really depend on people to call police and let us know that, hey, I'm hearing shots. Even if you don't have any information, we appreciate the phone calls. These are the robberies. So for the month of June, from June 1st to June 30th, we've had a total of 20 robberies in the entire District 5 neighborhood, the entire District 5 district. So what's one of the best ways to prevent yourself from being a victim of a robbery? Alert? Yes, being alert. If you see a group of people that you don't know, maybe you don't need to get out the car at that point. Maybe you need to wait till they leave. Maybe you need to drive down the block if you don't know that group of individuals. Maybe you don't need to be on your cell phone as you're walking wherever you're walking to. Okay. One thing that I always say that's very helpful is when you look the person in the eye as they're walking up to you, or you walking past them and saying hi, hello, how you doing? And when you look at people in the eye, you can pretty much see what they got on if something does happen. Instead of looking down on your cell phone, not paying attention, and then somebody take advantage of it. Motor vehicle thefts. So for the month of June, we had 61 motor vehicle thefts. 16 of those were taken with the keys. So basically either the keys were in the ignition, or there could be a situation where the keys were taken off the kitchen table by the boyfriend or the girlfriend. So those type of situations. Kias are still high as far as being stolen, but now Hyundais are not as prevalent. So now we have the Fiats, those little small vehicles, those are starting to creep up. Burglaries. So we had 34 burglaries that took place in the month of June. And it's hot outside, right? What are we doing at our houses? Windows open? Doors open. Okay, air conditioning. That's not secure. Y'all just put the air conditioning in the window, then put the nail in the thing, and nothing. Just open it. Nobody pushing in. Please. Be careful with that. Don't just keep the fan in the window. Don't just do that. No. Be careful. Okay, I know it's hot. Make sure that you have some kind of some kind of mechanism that someone cannot lift that window up from the outside. Okay, and if you sleep upstairs, make sure you close your windows. Make sure your doors are locked downstairs, because you would be surprised how many people will just try it and just see, let me just take this chance. Because as you said, that individual who lives at that vacant house on 17th Street, he has nothing to lose. Let me just take a chance and see what I can get. Okay? Traffic stops. So for the entire month of June, we conducted 133 traffic stops. So a lot of our traffic stops were focused in the Garden Homes area, but then also in that Arlington Heights neighborhood as well. Primarily along Atkinson. That's where we have had a lot of issues in the month of June. That 11th in Atkinson, 14th in Atkinson, 27th in Atkinson, just that whole little avenue. We've been having a lot of issues over there. But we do also do other traffic stops in different locations as well. The reason we have so many over here is trying to prevent some of the beef from taking place, or violent crime from taking place in those neighborhoods. And I always say that I believe in traffic stops. I like traffic stops when I was a cop. I have a problem, I like stopping people, because if you are running a red light, okay, that gives me an opportunity, have my lights on, I'm stopping you, I'm addressing you, but also whatever else is going on in the neighborhood, if people see those lights, those red and blues are going off, you know what, I'm not gonna go shoot Lil Joe. Even though he owed me money, I'm gonna wait till the police pass. And then maybe I'm there long enough so that he just forgets altogether, and he's like, I'm gonna catch you another time. So traffic stops, they are more than just conducting traffic stops. It's really about putting individuals on notice that, hey, you're in your community. Hey, we are here. We're on this traffic stop, but if you do something crazy, we'll get off of it and we will, make our stop with you if we need to. Okay, so real quick, I also want to talk about our field interviews. So we're under the common agreement still. This is the 5th year. We're still being monitored, and that's neither here nor there. So one thing that I will always say is that we are stopping people for the right reasons. It's not, I'm going to stop you just because you black. I'm going to stop you because you are Puerto Rican. Nope, I stopped you because you're selling drugs. I stopped you because they called and said you got a gun and that you shouldn't have a gun. So we're stopping people for the right reasons. One thing I want to share with you all is our National Night Out is going to be August 23rd. Who plays spades in here? Okay, so I expect Pastor, Mr. Banks, okay, Bishop, I don't know who's gonna be my partner, but I'm just saying, okay, and I don't want no reneging, okay? Okay, we partners. Okay, so we will have a lot of different games going on as well, but make sure you bring your children, your grandchildren. We're gonna have a kickball game that starts at 6 o'clock. Last year was really nice. Steve, Officer Caldwell, he posted a really nice video on our Facebook page, and I'm sure if you go on our Facebook page, you'll see how nice the event was. A lot of resources for everybody, so just make sure you come out. It's going to be at Clinton Rose Park. Now, any questions? Okay.
I'm glad I'm here because every year I seem to find out the day of.
After, okay.
So I'm like, how is this promoted?
Yes. A lot of times it's on Facebook, but we do send out those emails.
Everybody on Facebook.
Okay, well, we're gonna make sure we talk about it at the next meeting too.
I don't have a question, just a comment. I'd just like to say thanks again to District 5, because this area here, I've been here for 28 years in this corner. And this was one of the most dangerous areas I ever ministered in. But it have quieted down over here, and I want to give you guys a big round of applause because it showed up have gotten quieter, much quieter than what it used to be on this side of town. So thanks again to you guys.
Thank you. But we cannot take credit. We thank you guys. Because I know that incident that took place for all those bullets from flying up and down the street. So thank you guys for constantly, calling us and saying, hey, Captain Grant, this is what happened. We need squads over here. Thank you. So we are in this together. It's not, it's not our neighborhood. Police neighborhood is all of our neighborhoods. So thank you all. Y'all have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ma'am.